Hi everyone and welcome back to Vocal Arts. I am your host Peter Barber, professional singer and music producer. I had the great pleasure a couple months ago speaking with a guy named Charlie Hopkinson, one of the world's greatest impressionists. And now he's found so much success doing that he's going on a full tour doing his own one-act comedy show, like stand-up comedy. Dude is so funny, does amazing impressions and incorporates them into his show. But before we get into the conversation, which I thoroughly enjoyed, here's some of my favorite impressions from Charlie, and you'll hear him do some of them during the conversation as well. Enjoy.
For 20 days and 20 nights, the Emperor Penguin will travel to a place so extreme, it supports almost no other life.
Mr. White, we got like 99 problems, but this ain't one.
Towards a large Hawaiian and chips. Ordered by the Peaky Blinders.
You Plagueis. That's Plagueis.
The wise? Oh, she's not Plagueis.
Calling it early.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
I don't sound like that.
Everyone thinks their voice sounds different when it's played back to them.
How would you like it? Oh, hey, I'm Charlie and I do impressions.
Yeah, that's not nice.
Hello everyone, wherever you are watching or listening from. Welcome back to Vocal Arts. I'm here with Charlie Hopkinson, and I'm going to pass the baton over to him and allow him to introduce himself real quick.
Hello, thanks for having me on, Peter. I'm an impressionist and a voice actor and comedian here in the UK. And I've been doing that for about 5-6 years full time, and then about 10-12 years as a hobbyist in total.
So what got you into impressions? Just speaking from experience, like singers, I'm a singer. A lot of singers end up getting into impressions because you figure out how to kind of manipulate your voice. So I've always been interested in impressions. So I'm wondering how you found your way into doing them.
Yeah, so like when I was a teenager, I really liked impressionists. I saw some on British TV, mostly on the TV show Britain's Got Talent, actually, and then a few other big UK impressionists, and then I kind of discovered SNL later, and obviously all the impressions they do. So I really enjoyed them, but I always thought it was something that I wouldn't be able to do. It seemed like a bit of like a magic trick that you couldn't learn. Then in my first year of university, I must have been 18, and my friend's brother posted a video of an incredible Morgan Freeman impression by Josh Robert Thompson. And I was like, well, that guy looks like me and he can do an incredible Morgan Freeman impression. Wouldn't it be great if I could do that as well? So like that kind of like opened up the realization that if he can do it, I can do it. And that's when I started practicing. So, I mean, I think a lot of impressionists say like they always did voices when they were a kid, or they did their impressions as a kid. I never like actively tried to do impressions as a kid, really. I literally sat down one day and was like, right, this is going to be my new career path. No, it wasn't, more of a hobby at that point. But
that's so interesting. I would have expected it to be one of those things where, you know, you're watching a Disney movie and you're just trying to do all the lines of all the characters. I was not expecting it to be like, nope, now I'm going to learn how to do impressions.
Yeah, I definitely didn't really try to do any impressions. I think like maybe I was leaning that way with certain things, late teens. Like I remember when Avatar came out, actually the first Avatar film, and I kind of like, I really liked it. And I remember watching the trailer over and over again. And I was actually realized like when I repeated it, I was actually getting quite close. So maybe that was the first indication that I was going to be all right at it. But yeah, very much a conscious choice, which I think is slightly unusual.
So have you done any accents from Avatar? You're talking Avatar: The Last Airbender?
No, I'm talking about the Na'vi.
James Cameron.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were you imitating? Like Jake Sully and the General?
Pretty much the General is the one I remember. Yeah, a bit of Jake Sully, but like, I mean, I don't do any of those impressions now, but and I still haven't seen Avatar 2 actually, but yeah, those were the first ones I tried to do, and I definitely remember the General. What was the line? It was like, you do this for me, I'll get your legs back, your real legs. Like
Yeah, your
that
real
one.
legs. My buddy and I watched that like 5 times in theaters. We were obsessed with that movie when it came out. And the general is one of
Yeah.
our favorite characters. It was right when we had gotten into fitness, so he comes in and he's just like the most macho, like
Yeah.
man's man. And that's a fantastic movie, and there's some great accents in there. It would be interesting for you to check out Avatar: The Last Airbender because
I literally, it's funny you say that. My brother and sister loved that show, and we sat down like 2 days ago, and I watched the first ever episode of it. It's
no
quite difficult
way.
as an adult to get into it, but I need to persevere.
I think you should. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Morgan Freeman has obviously become one of your biggest accents, and that you said that was kind of where you started. So what was your approach for actually learning that? Because I mean, when you turn, you're right, it's like a magic trick. When you turn that voice on, it is like so radically different from your voice now, and truly so much like Morgan Freeman that it there's like this abstraction and shift in reality watching you do it. It's really amazing.
Thanks very much. Yeah, like when I do stand up, like it's definitely like the voice that gets the most interesting reaction and varied reaction as you go around the country doing it.
Yeah.
So like that is because like it's the dissonance between how you look and how you're sounding, and maybe how distinct his voice is from my own voice. Yeah. How did I go about learning Morgan Freeman? Well, I listened to Joshua Robert Thompson a huge amount. Like it's always easier to learn an impression off someone who's done a very good one themselves. It's kind of like, because there's always going to be some level of like caricature there. And it's easier to, like, it's just going to tell you the points, the aspects of the voice where people recognize, oh, that's Morgan Freeman. Like they've set out the map for you. And then if you want to, I mean, that's always like, that'll do great things for you. And then you can always go to the actual voice if you want to be more of an impersonation, and like try and use what you've got to get as a base, and then go to like a bit closer to what the real Morgan Freeman sounds like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always like, that's why it's always when it's almost like someone cracks the code, like someone learns a voice and then everyone else follows in. Everyone else, like all of a sudden everybody's doing that impression because one person's like cracked the code.
And when you're starting at the ground up, I mean, do you just go in and try to do it and then listen back or do you really specifically pinpoint the nuances of, say, a Morgan Freeman voice that are like what separate him from another voice, and then target those specific things?
Yeah. So sometimes they just come naturally. I guess that's like a bit of luck, almost, or like luck and experience. The more you've done it, the more, and also the greater palette of voices that you have, so you're more likely to be able to just pick one out. So where I'm at now, if I try and do a new one, I'll always try and find the similarities and differences to voices that I can always do. And whenever it's a deep voice, I'm always starting off, and it always sounds like another one that I can do. And then I'll show it to someone, and they'll be like, "No, that's that one that you do." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's find a way to differentiate that." One example of that is when one of my favorite voices to do is Walter White from Breaking Bad, and when he sounded like Optimus Prime to begin with, for so long. Like, it took me ages to do Walter White. Should I do an impression of Walter White?
Please.
Yeah.
Chemistry. It is the study of change. It is growth, then decay, then transformation.
Bravo, man. That's excellent. That is
Much.
excellent.
I think that's my favorite one to do that I don't get to do very often, because not everyone's seen Breaking Bad.
Everyone over here has, pretty much.
Yeah,
it's
like
really popular in the
sure.
States.
So unusually, like I was like, lots of people have seen it in the UK, but they like, it's not an absolute, like, it's still, when I go to an audience and you're like, who's seen Breaking Bad? It's still like not a high enough percentage to justify doing a routine.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So yeah, like I'll use, that's generally my go-to. And then I'll, like, whenever I do a new voice, it always starts like Walter White, because I've done that one a lot as well. And then sometimes it's like it's from scratch. But ultimately, I always am able to do I always find I'm able to do a voice if I'm inspired by it. Like, so particularly if it's like an actor that I like, I do mostly do actors. Like my most recent one is I just saw Dune. Have you seen Dune?
Oh
Yeah.
my God, Dune Part 2 was unbelievable.
It was great. Like I
Amazing.
wasn't that bothered about Dune 1, but now I've seen Dune 2. I'm in. Like
Same.
I'm hooked. But Baron Harkonnen or Stellan Skarsgård, his voice, because he's in Andor as well. I just love his voice. He's definitely going to be my next one to do, I think.
So
I've got like the thread of it, but it's nowhere near yet.
I'll have to get you back on. You can do that voice. So it sounds like you're very much naturally a bass voice, a low voice, can relate, obviously. Do you find that, obviously it's helpful for all the low voices you do, of course, just to be able to tap down into those frequencies and get kind of that gravel down there. Do you find that a lot of the accents you like to do are those low voices, or do you like kind of challenging yourself in a way to do the higher voices?
I generally like the low voices. It helps that. Also, I think your voice gets deeper. The more I do this, like I've done this, like my voice, everyone like says to me now, like obviously I don't sound like Morgan Freeman, but when they hear my impression and then they hear me again, they're like, oh, I can only hear Morgan Freeman in your voice. So I think my voice has like gone that way because of the amount of time I've spent in that range. Are there any higher, or I don't know what the different operatic
bass, baritone, tenor. You're probably not dealing with soprano or anything like that. But
no, I don't think so, unless it's Morty and Rick and Morty. Falsetto.
Right.
Is there any voices that so one voice that I've never been able to crack, and I really like the voice, is Tom Hanks, and he's quite high, and I'm wondering if that's what it is. But I can it's really annoying because sometimes when you do impressions, you do a version of the person, like if their voice might change loads depending on the character and also their age. So I feel like I can actually do quite a good old reserved Tom Hanks, like a Sully Tom Hanks. But that's not what everyone remembers. Everyone remembers kind of like style Tom Hanks, so like Woody kind of Tom Hanks. And I've always struggled, and that must be because it's not one of my classics. Like it's not in my classic like gravelly, whispery old man kind of voice.
Right. Okay. So if you had to put it into words, what would you say the differences are between Morgan Freeman and Gandalf? Like what makes those voices different? Because they seem to operate in a very similar range, at least when Gandalf kind of like dips off at the end of phrases and gets kind of way down into the basement. So like what are the differences between those two voices?
Yeah, so like the starkest, most obvious difference is the accent. Ian McKellen, thankfully, is very RP, and Morgan Freeman's got that sort of I don't know, is it Mississippi accent?
I don't know where he's from actually.
Yeah, but like American English, that's an immediate distinction. When you're trying to do an impression, you generally try and get the face. I don't know if I definitely have I can like describe the face of Morgan Freeman, but it's definitely somewhere in the mouth. Like there's a definite mouth shape to it. Whereas Gandalf for me is always in the eyes. Like you sort of like, and that you just like, if you distort those muscles, I almost think of it like an instrument. Like, if you're ultimately you're like blowing air through. So like these tiny subtle changes to the mouthpiece that the air is coming out of, they're just gonna, every one of those, like you always try and condense them. Over the years, I've always tried to condense impressions down to like, right, am I hitting the depth or the pitch? Am I hitting the face? Like you always want to have something that's like actionable. Like because it can feel so daunting to just be, all right, learn this voice. It's like, all right. And you're constantly like tweaking these like 5 bars or something like that, and eventually you get there, and you keep listening to it, and you start narrow with the phrases, and then when you get that phrase, you like broaden it out, and like sorry. Anyway, back to the question. Gandalf and Morgan Freeman. So I'll do Gandalf.
Darkness took me, and I strayed out of thought and time. Stars weird Every day felt as long as a life edge of the earth. It was not the end.
That's so good, man. Oh my god,
That's my favorite impression. I think, like, just because I love Gandalf.
love it.
If you go to my channel, you can see a whole load of Gandalf. That's
Yes,
my favorite
I will.
character to do.
I will point all people in that direction. I was just because I've watched your stuff for a long time, but I was just recapping some of your highlights over the last couple of days. And yeah, whenever you turn on Gandalf, I'm just like, it's like I'm right there because I mean I love Lord of the Rings and love Gandalf.
Thanks very much. So like what I was doing there was I think you can maybe see, it might be quite subtle, but you can see like the eyes are like,
Yep.
You can see that almost like pursing of I always think of like his like wrinkles that he has here. Like that's what I'm like focusing on. He has a little bit of a whistle to his voice as well. I'm lucky because I've got a little bit of a gap between my front teeth, so I almost have like that. Like I think most of my impressions end up with a bit of a whistle. And then you've got your rhythm of your voice and what is distinct about. So like in Morgan Freeman's rhythm, very deliberate pauses in slightly maybe unusual places. So I do Morgan Freeman now.
Sometimes it makes me sad, though. Then I have to remind myself December is how many became. Yeah. The feathers just too bright.
Bravo, man. It's amazing. It's amazing. Like if I close my eyes, it's like it's just a totally different person speaking.
Like what I try to do with Morgan Freeman to sell it a bit more is like just take those like thoughtful, almost like chewing his own mouth kind of like pauses. What's that?
Let me have to think about that.
Like kind of like
yeah.
ponderous, whereas Ian McKellen's kind of more like rhythmic. Like it's kind of like don't know exactly how to explain it, but like
he does have like a poetic cadence kind of to the way he delivers lines.
And you can get that with like quite a few of the Shakespearean actors, but I think it's more distinct when he does it, particularly as Gandalf. Like so like I would say those are probably the most distinct differences, and like that'll be the way that you start to like differentiate, and then slowly you might bring in like certain mannerisms in your face, like all like help and stuff, and again you're contorting the body to be the most like them. It's going to change the way the voice comes out.
So when you're doing live shows, which I'd be interested to hear more about, I mean, is that a big part of what you do? It's not just the voice, but it's doing enough of the mannerisms that people might recognize to where you become like the whole package, as opposed to, oh, this is Charlie doing a voice. It's like the voice and the movements and, like you said, like where you're focusing the sound in the face.
It's actually something that I think I can improve on live. I actually got given a note by that recently, and I can kind of see it, is that I focus so much on the writing and the voice that I forget about the visual performance. And it's definitely something I want to bring more in. Sometimes I'm so focused on getting the voice absolutely spot on because that's what I'm kind of trying to show people. They're like, for example, when I do Morgan Freeman, I do it quite head down. It's quite quiet and whispery. And that's not the best for performance, but I sort of need that to get the voice as close as I can. But I would like to improve that element of my live performances.
Yeah. Where are you hoping to take the live shows? I mean, that is more recent than you being a professional impressionist, right? The live shows is a more recent. I mean, I know you've been doing it for a few years at this point, but it is more recent.
Yeah, I started stand-up about a year after I went full-time. I think I generally intended to do it at some point, and it seemed like the perfect time. But I'm putting together my first tour at the moment. I'm hoping to come to America. At the moment, I'm trying to get as many. email signups as possible to so I can demonstrate that it's worth coming over, basically.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'm doing. But yeah, I've got a show next week in London, which is the second run out of the show. And it's shaping up nicely. It's mostly Lord of the Rings, Star Wars related, this one, because that's what I'm doing at the moment. I used to do a lot of Peaky Blinders. I don't know if you've heard of that show.
Oh yes, one of my favorites.
Yeah, Cillian Murphy.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
But I've now moved more into the sort of fantasy, sci-fi genres. There's still a little bit of Peaky Blinders in there, but yeah.
Well, I figure any show over there, Peaky Blinders has still got to kill, right?
Oh yeah. Like very much in the UK. I just don't know how. Like I know the US generally likes Peaky Blinders, but I guess like almost Peaky Blinders might be the Breaking Bad equivalent. It's like, oh yeah, most people have heard of it. Probably about 40% have watched it, but I don't know if that would necessarily translate.
Yeah, over here, you find a lot of people who've heard of Peaky Blinders, fewer people who've watched it, but everyone who's watched it is obsessed with it. So if you did a Peaky Blinders impression, you'd get 10% of the crowd losing their minds. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, that's probably not enough unless they really lose their mind.
Something like Game of Thrones would be for sure huge.
Yeah.
Over here.
Yeah, Game of Thrones. I got a few Game of Thrones. Sean Bean, Tyrion, doing okay. Jon Snow. I always find Jon Snow is another one of those. I mean, my Jon Snow's not that great, but like he's another one who's a voice changer. Like his season 1 Jon Snow and season 7, 8 Jon Snow are like completely different.
Yeah, totally.
Like he cements that voice. We used to do lots of Game of Thrones characters, but unfortunately people are less interested in Game of Thrones because of season 8.
After season 8.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. I mean, I agree season 8 left a lot to be desired, but it's just such a masterpiece throughout most of it, you know?
Yeah. I think it just demonstrates how you've just got to end it well, like to secure its legacy, don't you? Like it's.
And they apparently they could have gone through 10 seasons. They had the green light to go through 10 seasons, which is heartbreaking to me. I was like, I would have watched 10 seasons of that show.
Yeah. Absolutely. No one was like, when is Game of Thrones going to be done?
No, exactly. Man, yeah. Okay. Back to this anyway. So you were doing it as a hobby for a while. I'm sure it was just an incredible party trick for people. And when did you start your YouTube channel? And I mean, is that kind of what informed you that this would be possible to do full time? It's like, oh, a lot of people actually really find this entertaining and interesting. Maybe I could have a go of it.
Yeah, so I started my YouTube channel final year of university. So that would have been 20. I think I put my first video on late 2012. And that was just the 5 impressions. It was Morgan Freeman, Gandalf, and then 3 from the Dark Knight, because Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises had just come out. That was the first like main impressions video that I did, and that one did all right. And that kind of was a bit reticent to put that on the YouTube channel, because then all your generally people in your circles are going to find out what you've been doing for the last 3 years.
Oh yes, of course.
But thankfully I'd been practicing for 2 years before that point, so I probably did it at the right time. And I released that one. I think it got like 80,000 views in total. And then off the back of that, I joined Fiverr and started selling the impressions. At that point, I was like, oh, people will actually pay money for this, which as a student, getting just a little bit of extra income was very much appreciated. And then I put out, so it's been about a year later, when I finished university, I was doing like a year out. I put on the video, which got me my sort of opened quite a few opportunities, which was just I mean, you see these, they don't really see them anymore, actually, to be fair. They don't really do that well on YouTube anymore, but like just 40 impressions. Here I am, I do 40 impressions, and then like they seem to have died off on YouTube. But they were all the rage back then. And that one did really well. I think that's on like 13 million views now.
That's wild.
yeah, like I got like a bunch of. It was a great like showpiece. It wasn't very well put together in where you're at now, but uh, yeah, like I got a couple of TV opportunities and some other opportunities like off the back of that. And that was probably the point where I was like, oh yeah, like this could be a genuine opportunity to do this as a career. But I needed a proper job and a backup, so I went off and trained as a teacher for 2 years. And I was a maths teacher. And some of the students found out that I was found the videos, and it went around the school on the the second week of me teaching. And I became known as the impressions teacher. So I'd use it as a little bit of a bargaining chip, like for some of the more difficult classes. Like, if you're good, then maybe we'll do some impressions at the end.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that carrot sort of loses its shine after a couple of weeks, so you're back to struggling. But yeah, like so I'm a fully qualified teacher. Use that as a backup, and then in 2016 I went full time, and been doing it ever since.
I never thought about Fiverr. I was thinking stand up and YouTube, of course. I never thought about Fiverr, but that makes a ton of sense. So what kind of gigs do people hire you for on Fiverr?
A whole range. I mean, I'm maybe just at the point where I might be coming off it. I haven't decided yet, because they've made quite a few changes, and I don't really have the time to like keep up with the changes that you have to put in now. But they generally, birthday messages, little joke messages, through to like lots of like, I've done a lot of wedding stuff actually, like sort of best man speech, like jokes, and mostly like low level jokey stuff, and then a few more like bigger things like little adverts, regional adverts, and things like that.
Is it voiceover work or impressions or writing?
No writing. Mostly voiceover. Impressions. A tiny bit of voiceover, and like 70-80% of that was Morgan Freeman over the years. Like, it's always been the one that people want to pay for is Morgan Freeman.
Yeah. Are you on Cameo?
I have meant to be on Cameo. I just not got around to it yet.
That's a good one. I would recommend that one. I think people would hire you a lot on that, and it's really simple, really easy to deal with. Probably much more simple than Fiverr. Because people they just put in a request for a little video. They say what they want in it. You just record it right there on your phone, send it back to them. Done.
Yeah. Might have to do that then. I'll add it to the list.
Add it to the list of things. But the tour coming up. So if you get so you're hoping to get to the US, but if that doesn't happen, where are you already planning to go?
I'll definitely do a UK tour. We might do it in stages. We might like do the UK tour, see how that goes. It's like I'd probably come to the US and lose money. I just it's all about the visa. Like, can you get the visa and justify it to the authorities that you can come over? So like, it'd be, if I broke even on a tour, I'd like to go to multiple countries, and I think it'd be a great experience. It'd be nice to go and see people who have watched the YouTube channel like over the years and meet them. Like, I think it's always nice to bring what you've done online into the real world. So the actual people who have watched your stuff.
So you must enjoy performing live, because I know there are plenty of creators who love just being behind the screen, posting the videos, and not wanting to actually interface with a lot of the fans or the audience. But it sounds like you do like that aspect of it.
No, like I really appreciate when people, because sometimes people travel like quite a way. I know in America that's even like even more so. Like in England, when we find out that people would drive like 3 hours for a steak, we're like, well, I'm not going to Scotland for a steak. And it'd have to be the best steak in the world for me to do that. Like I think I have like a passion for on the online stuff. I always wanted like do something that's not been done before, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing at the moment online, kind of using that new technology. And same with a impression show. I think people probably have a view of what an impression show will be, and I want to actually serve them something that I think is like what it could be, or I want to experiment and make it slightly closer to more like experimental stand-up, which has impressions in it, and let it have like a proper narrative and things like that. But it is also difficult because when people see impressions, they turn up expecting one thing, and if it's not that thing, then all of a sudden they might be like, "Oh, this is not what I was expecting." So you try, if it's good, it's good. Like, so ultimately, it just needs to be good.
Yeah. Are you in the writing process now, or and also is your show like full hour long set with? Are you gonna have openers or other mates to come join you, or how does the show kind of look?
I haven't got as far as that. It's an hour. It'll definitely be at least an hour of the show. There might be an opener, but it's like at the moment it's like a multimedia show. So there's like lots of things. There's lots of things going on. It's not just me and a microphone doing impressions for an hour. It's
Right.
yeah, it's an exciting challenge, but it is challenging. Like I do have a little bit of a habit of making things a little bit too complicated for myself, so I have to keep pulling myself back from that. Oh, what if we have this? Can we have cannons going off here? Oh,
Yes, yes. You need a t-shirt cannon, and you got to have
it's
that
like,
no matter the
to be
venue.
honest, like 40% of the material is all about a t-shirt cannon, so it's very difficult to edit around that when that doesn't work. It's like, oh god,
If the cannon malfunctions, the set is just cooked.
It's a half an hour show now, guys.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you don't get a refund. All right.
Oh, you don't get a refund. You don't get t-shirts. It's a nightmare.
I was going to ask about how like live microphones are different than when you can record yourself and kind of deal with the audio later. I was just thinking that would be a huge factor as because when you're dealing with your equipment, and when you have your editing suite you can operate in later, exactly how you can make your voice sound. But if you're just dealing with some renegade bar mic, the accent's not going to be the same.
Yes, that's why I just lip sync all my stand up. Don't do it live. Let's leave nothing to chance here. Yeah. No, that's been an issue over the years. Like I'm always, and it's not so much the mic necessarily. I mean, sometimes it is the mic, but it's more like noise bleed if the venue's just not that great. That when the performers get there, and I'm like, I hate to make it all about me, but I'm like, oh, this is gonna hurt me more than it's gonna hurt you if the noise is bad, because this is the big part of what I do.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's difficult for everyone. It's slightly more difficult for me.
The drum set is going to be loud and heard either way, right? Or the joke is probably going to land either way. But
and also like they can shout into the mic. All my impressions are quiet, so like if there is a tech that's not switched on, or like it can be like I've definitely had it where somebody's left the gain too low and not realized. And I was doing Morgan Freeman. There's a certain, like, I know the joke's good, so there's a certain amount that I expect it to land, and I realized that it was only landing in certain bits of the audience near the speakers. I was like, and then my friend told me, he's like, yeah, we couldn't hear like a load of the Morgan Freeman because the gain was too low.
Right.
So yeah, you need switched on tech for sure.
Yeah. So many
no
of those
noise bleed, switched on tech.
So many of those low voices are done in a very intimate kind of way. If you think like a Tommy Shelby, like
yes,
he yells on occasion, but for the most part, it is very breathy, very low in his voice, and that kind of thing. I mean, most people that speak English like need subtitles when watching the show. When the recording quality is perfect. If you're out in a loud environment, that just gets 10 times harder to probably know exactly what's going on and to hear the nuances of a voice like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's part of a little bit what makes it seem a bit more like a magic trick as well. Like when it's so quiet and breathy and like it almost like it feels when you hear it like projected around the room, it just makes it more feel like it's almost like being played on a tape. I think that is partly what, like, I think the ones that always get the best reaction when I do live stuff is Morgan Freeman, Tommy Shelby, Attenborough as well, actually, David Attenborough. Not Gandalf for some reason. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because I'd never used like a really strong Gandalf quote. I go straight into something that he wouldn't say, so it's less like, oh yeah, that's really good. It's more like, I'm enjoying the joke, but it gets a different reaction. It's more of a, like, some of those get a bit more of like a gasp, and that one gets more of a laugh, which ultimately is why you're there. But it's nice to have a bit of variety of like reaction, and it keeps the audience guessing.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you said you're in the process of writing this show, and it's stand up. There's a narrative. It's accents and stuff. Like, how much do you? I mean, you have to be a really funny person. And I was watching some of the bits the other day that you had done, and I was laughing. I was just like laughing my ass off. I was like, this guy is really good at accents, but he's also very funny. And so, how much in these shows are you going to kind of lean into the accents or lean into the comedic writing? And how do you find the balance, like you said, because some people show up thinking, oh, he's just going to do voices for an hour or whatever.
Yeah. I always think that the joke is king, and I like to think of the impression as the icing on the cake. It's like, like there's a famous, do you know who Eddie Izzard is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the famous Darth Vader routine about food in the food canteen in the Death Star. And I think I always use that as a little bit of a, when I'm trying to write new materials, like that's kind of what we're trying to aim to do, but with doing the impressions well, there is an element of like, oh, the impression not being that, like not really being an impression is part of what makes it funny. But I like to think that's why I aspire to write a routine that stands alone if I was not good at impressions, and then hopefully the impression elevates it.
Okay.
But sometimes I just rely on the voice. Sometimes you know what, if they enjoy the voice, let's just do the voice.
Yeah, totally.
Let's cheat one. Yeah.
So it seems like lately you've been getting into more almost like skit writing sort of on your channel. I didn't watch it, but when I was on your channel the other day, I saw you did like a Qui-Gon Jinn talking about Dune and how it's a Star Wars ripoff. It's like, when did you get into doing that kind of thing, like taking a character and creating a skit or a skit between these characters? Characters talking to each other. What I'm doing right now on the channel is very much like a culmination of 10 years of trying to find this thing that I think would be really enjoyable to watch. But ultimately, I probably would have done it with animation, but I'm not good enough or didn't have enough money to do it with animation. So doing it with the face filters is actually what, like, that technology is what's allowed me to do what I've always tried to do. In fact, you can go back, because I tried to teach myself animation. And if you go back on my channel, like, must have been 2017 or something, I kind of did this. It's kind of like, it's the characters talking about their own experiences in their own films. Or like, it's basically like a director's cut, but it's the characters doing it, not the director. Like, that's how I would describe the thing. And so I've kind of felt like this is the combination of a bunch of different skills and this idea that I've had that I've never been able to like realize until now. I'm inspired quite a lot by Fly the Conchords and Taika Waititi style stuff. People have drawn parallels there, and I love all their stuff. So it's sometimes I have to like draw myself back from not like being too inspired. I need other influences as well. But I love their sort of dry Kiwi humor. And there's some parallels have been drawn with the Thor. Have you seen the Thor? Like, it's the first thing Taika Waititi did with Chris Hemsworth, where it's like Thor and Daryl.
you seen that?
I remember Tiki's part in his first appearance in those movies.
No worries if you haven't. But I'll basically explain. It's
Yeah,
basically like a flat sitcom. It's 3 minutes long. It's Thor moving in. He's not involved in like Captain America, like Infinity War, not Infinity War, Civil War. And then he's like, "Well, I didn't want to be involved anyway." And then he's moved in with this like really average guy, Daryl, and it's their sitcom.
Okay,
of, like,
I have not
Daryl
seen
and
that.
Thor.
Now that you're explaining it, I have not seen that.
Check it out. It's really funny. It's like a 3 minute like thing, but that has been a big part of the inspiration for what I'm doing now. So that was kind of like the inspiration for doing. Let's do a Jedi, like let's do Jedi's living together, watching their own films, all their egos getting involved, trying to find that dynamic. And like it's quite a nice challenge to be able to try and find like a dynamic between the characters that feels real. I think that's my favorite part of it. And in the Star Wars ones, there's very distinct dynamic between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. It's that grandfather, son that was mistreated, grandchild that's been spoiled, and doesn't see the flaws. And that's really fun to write for. And it's quite nice. Also, like it is parody and it is like all obviously quite silly, but I'm trying to also give them a little bit of emotional depth and things like that. And that's what excites me the most about what I'm making on the channel. And then I'm writing the Lord of the Rings one as well at the same time and trying to give that. I don't want to do the same thing, so it's trying to find like a distinct something that's rooted in the films that would be enjoyable to explore.
Yeah, awesome. So what does a kind of start to finish of one of these projects look like? I'm sure the writing is a major time component, and then before you get into shooting, but yeah, what does that writing process look like? And then do you plan out the whole shoot? Like, do you have like storyboards and stuff like that, or do you shoot a bunch of stuff and then figure out how you want to use the material later?
I wish I had time to do multiple drafts, but mostly it's like, so we tend to do it to the shows when they come out. For example, when Ahsoka came out, we did like, we've got to try and get it out within 3 days. So I feel like it's a little bit like South Park in that sense. There's like, I don't know if you know about South Park, but they like write it within, they literally like make it all within a week from writing to them. Feels a bit like that sometimes.
I did not know that. I did not know that about that show. That's wild.
Yeah, it's like really current, which for animation is crazy. And what which obviously ours is nowhere near the level of South Park, but it's that same kind of process. It's like, how can we do this so efficiently that we will get up as soon as it's released, watch it, I'll write it for 3 hours, then we'll get the costumes on, then we shoot each bit separately. So each character will film all their lines in one go. Then we'll take all that footage, and my sister works for me and my friend as well. And we'll cut up all that footage and make like just an asset of all their lines. And then we put it through the machine and do all the face filters. Eventually we've got 3. We'll have, if it's the Star Wars one, we'll have 3 assets with all the characters, with all the faces on, and then we'll cut it together to the film. And hopefully, if I performed it right, it'll feel like it's 3 people genuinely talking to each other.
So it's a quick turnaround from when something comes out to when you guys try to have it released, just so it's as relevant as possible.
Yeah. We've got it down to about 3 days for so for us releasing a 20-30 minute piece of comedy, like basically like a sitcom episode, it takes about 3 days if we're all hands to the pump and just work nonstop. But it wasn't like that initially. It was much shorter and a lot less involved, but we've got more efficient at it, and we've also found a few ways where we can cut a few corners.
That is wild. That is a lot to do. And so, do you have long gaps between releases? Do you have a set release schedule for the channel, or is it just when something comes up that you're like, this would make great content?
So we generally time it around the big TV series, and then when those aren't on, we go back to what we call the main storyline, which is the 9 Star Wars films, the 3 Lord of the Rings films, the Hobbit films, like we've kind of, because we've got this like arc going on in the background. Those are the bits I probably enjoy the most. I like doing the sort of like background arc and the character development. But yeah, we'll whenever like a new show comes out, we'll pause that and we'll do weekly content for 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then we'll go back and do the more legacy like films and shows.
So since you're so much into the writing, have you thought about making, I mean, I guess you could kind of consider these short films in a way, but short films or full length films of any kind, doesn't necessarily have to be based on, what we've been talking about. But is that something that interests you?
Yeah, I'd like to. I'd like to do something original at some point. Eventually, maybe we'll park impressions, but yeah, also it's what I'm good at. It's what people want from me. Sometimes I feel impressionists like to disown impressions. It's quite common. I don't know, more so in the UK. Maybe it's because it's looked down upon a bit more. But I try to look at it a bit more like, well, let's try and do something new with impressions than just try and go and do something else. But it would be a nice challenge to do something original, or maybe something a bit more like a short film with some genuine depth that isn't someone else's character.
Yeah.
But I also use this as a playground to like hone my craft. I'm not that good a writer, so I've got to do my time in the gym, in the writing gym.
Sure. And as far as would you be interested in acting in a show or a movie or doing voiceovers for stuff? I don't know if you've done that, but I'm sure you've done some kind of voiceover work. But
yeah, I'd love to do that. I'm not trained in acting at all. It'd be a very good challenge. Yeah, it's just very competitive, isn't it?
yeah, for sure.
I think that like doing this kind of stuff is more a case of just make your own stuff, make your own waves, and then if someone thinks you're good enough, like maybe they'll come and sorry, can you hear those coming through? I don't know how to.
Yep, I can hear you. Oh no, I mean that just sounds normal. Whatever's going on.
Okay. Yeah, like I think when you're in such a competitive industry, which the entertainment, TV, film industry is, like, go make your own stuff. Always have something going on on your own back, and then hopefully someone will see it one day and be like, "Oh, that was good. Why don't you come and write for this show? Why don't you come do a small part in this?" Like,
yeah,
I've kind of let go of any ambitions to be particularly big or anything like that. I just kind of want to work on what I want to and do small bits here and there.
Cool, very cool. Have you ever met any of the people you've impersonated? And second to that, have any of these people like reached out to you or been like, "Hey, great impression," or anything like that?
No, I haven't.
I mean, you obviously, you're doing impressions of like some of the most famous people in the world. So
yeah, there was an opportunity touted at one point to maybe do something with Morgan Freeman around a film release, but it didn't materialize.
Man, that would have been so cool.
I mean, I'm a little bit nervous, like that if I met them. Like when I write the jokes, I kind of want to, again, like I take some inspiration from South Park. Is like I think you can go 2 ways with impressions. You can either, you can sort of play up to the person that you're doing, or if you write like a good joke, I'd like to think that maybe they would respect it. Like they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that is funny. You've cut to the core of like that thing," and that's the way I naturally lean in the way that South. Like I'm almost like people like a lot of people in South Park do them. They're like, "Oh, South Park did me. That was really funny. Well done." Like, and I'd like to do that, but then that also opens the door to like pissing a few people off. So
surely, I mean,
that would I do like. I'm not sure if I want to meet anyone that. I mean, the only person I really want to meet, I think, is Ian McKellen. He would be great to meet. He looks a lot of fun. Cillian Murphy looks like fun as well. but he's obviously mega now, so probably never going to happen.
He is mega. Yeah, for sure.
Talk of the town.
Cool. Just a couple more questions, man. One is, so like we talked about earlier, there's like when you're getting into an accent or an impression, there's faces you're thinking about, there's body language you're thinking about to kind of get you into that mode. I'm sure there are specific lines from the characters that really help you kind of dial straight into that accent. Do you feel comfortable on some of these accents to where you could just have a conversation with someone and just stay solidly in the accent?
It's really difficult. If I really know the impression, like, and I would say there's probably like 5 or 6 of those, I would probably be able to just about hold a conversation, but I'd have to take a lot of time to think about my response, and there'll be times where it dips out. Probably Morgan Freeman would be the most likely because I've done it the most. But trying to improvise in an impression that you only like half know, I've been asked to do that a few times. Like sometimes like a voiceover has asked for like 5 impressions, two of which I could do, and they give me a completely new script. And I'm just like, it's so stressful trying to like reach for an impression that like sort of sounds like it, and then you get notes on an impression that you can't do. Like, can we have it a little bit more like this? Like, I can barely do the thing. I can't do it slightly differently. Yeah. So only when it's really cemented, I would generally say. It's really hard to improvise in impressions.
It's also probably, I mean, you're also going to hold yourself to such a high standard with it too. Probably like, you know, something like the Morgan Freeman, which is essentially perfected, you know, and you're super comfortable in. It'd be like if you like took a crack at, I don't know, having a conversation in like Tommy Shelby, people would probably be like, that's amazing. You know, like maybe you wouldn't want to put it in a performance, but it would probably come across pretty well to most people.
Yeah. Like I'm probably being overly critical because in order to be able to do an impression, I know exactly what he sounds like. And then I'm like, I'm being overly critical. And people are like, oh yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, and the more of but also like you do hits, like if you really want to sell impressions, you're trying to keep it to the phrases that you know really well. And if you're improvising a conversation, you can't do that. Like you've got to just go where the conversation shows you. So yeah, live shows, people are really forgiving of impressions, but online, if there's one out of place,
because it's there. It's there forever, and people can repeat the 5 seconds.
Exactly.
And people are also just goblins in the YouTube comment section anyway. So
right. No, not on your channel, not on my channel, but yeah. Exactly.
Cool, man. So last big question is just like we talked about a little bit about this, but just kind of like, do you have any really specific like major goals for you and your career, essentially?
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on them. I really like to, I mean, we talked about Game of Thrones in season 8, and I'd really like to, the thing that's at the forefront of my mind at the moment is to finish what I've started with the Star Wars storyline, the Lord of the Rings storyline on my YouTube channel, and give it a satisfying full ending. Like I want people to be like, eventually like, I would like to go back and watch those 9 episodes like once a year or something like that. That would be, because it really fits together nicely as a whole piece. So that's like that's probably my main YouTube aim. I want to do my stand-up show, and I want to get better at that, and I want to like do multiple tours. It's very exhausting. So that might be a more like long-term goal. And then in the background, I think doing something original would be a nice challenge.
Awesome.
Maybe in my 40s. But when I turn 40, I'll be like, that's it, no more impressions. Let's do something.
You know, the low-voiced impressions are just going to get better and better.
True. Or they'll get too deep. I'll be like, you can't be able to hear them anymore.
Yeah, just
reverse dog whistle,
rumbling and air. All right, so are you up for a little rapid fire?
Yep, sure.
And you can pick the lines. I kind of prompted earlier by seeing like, you know, can you just say anything in the accent? We won't do that. But we'll do just, some of the ones that I know you do, and you can say anything you want.
Yep.
All right,
Absolutely.
let's start with Morgan Freeman.
For 20 days and 20 nights, the Emperor Penguin will travel to a place so extreme it supports almost no other life.
I don't know if you were watching my face, but it was like
I
complete
haven't done that one
shock.
for ages, actually. I've not done March of the Penguins for a while.
Fantastic. Okay, let's do Gandalf.
Let's do Gandalf.
Board is sent. The pieces are moving. We come to it at last. The great battle of our time.
Amazing. Tommy
Shelby.
Yeah.
I promise, my friend, that is on. So a few words over his grave. He passed before me.
So good, man. Okay, how about Arthur? Tommy's brother.
Chum!
Still go for that one.
Okay, I know all the Peaky Blinders characters too well. Aberama.
I can't remember his lines, but I remember his feel. Polly Gray.
Actually, can't think of a Aberama quote.
How about Alfie?
Hey, mate. That is the brown bread, right? Yeah. Just
Bravo,
noises.
man. Thank you for doing that. Thank you. Thank you. So cool. Well, dude, this has been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you again so much for coming on the channel. And any words you have to the people listening, feel free.
Thank you very much for having me on. Yeah, if you want to, obviously I've mentioned it a few times. If you want to go and check out, if you like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, we're going to do Harry Potter at some point, I think. Basically, if you go to my channel, we do a sort of character reaction to their own films. We've just finished the prequels and Star Wars, so we're starting the originals soon. Lord of the Rings is early days, but we've done Rings of Power and things like that as well. Also, if you're in the UK, come along to one of my shows. Hopefully, I'll also make it to the US at some point. If you want to join my free waitlist on my website, we'll email you once tickets are available, once and only once, and that can be found via my YouTube channel as well.
Awesome. I'll have all your stuff in the description.
Great stuff.
Great, man. We'll stick around for a minute after we sign off, and we'll debrief and stuff. But thanks so much. Great chatting with you.
Thanks very much.
Peace.
See you later.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Charlie Hopkinson. If you did, definitely check out this one with Janet Varney, the voice of Cora. Go on, check it out. I know you want to.